Call meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Kraft.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White, Councilmember Powell,
Here.
Councilmember Pryan,
Here.
Councilmember Kraft,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Goff,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances. A. Mark 50 Forward Day Proclamation. Mayor Pro Tem Clark is going to present.
Tonight we have Carol Gonzalez, the Director of Finance and Administration for Mid-America Regional Council, to accept the proclamation.
Carol, come on up here. Whereas for half a century, local governments in Kansas City region have come together through the Mid-America Regional Council to partner on regional initiatives and develop innovative solutions. And whereas the region consists of 9 counties and 119 cities which benefit from working across boundaries on a wide variety of issues and coordinating with diverse disciplines and sectors, including cities, counties, not-for-profit organizations, social services, educational systems, and special districts. And whereas the region's leaders engage in informed decision-making through insightful data analysis and participate in problem-solving, formed to positively impact progress, and whereas each jurisdiction and individual has a role in creating a strong regional community and enabling everyone to come together and achieve positive change for the next 50 years. And whereas MARC is an organization that promotes regional cooperation through leadership, planning, and action, and is guided by core values and integrity, innovation, collaboration, diversity, and inclusion, excellence in performance and service leadership. And whereas the City of Belton has participated or benefited from working across boundaries, allowing us to better serve residents because of our regional work regarding public safety, transportation, environment, early learning, aging, and shared local government services. Now therefore, Norman K. Larkey Sr., Mayor of the City of Belton, does hereby recognize and proclaim June 10th, 2022 as Mark 50 Forward Day in Belton, a day to celebrate and collaborative work that's been accomplished over the past 50 years. We urge local leaders and community members to reflect on great progress made in the past 50 years and join us in welcoming a future built upon strong regional collaborations, connections, relationships, and accomplishments. In witness whereof, Norman K. Larkey Sr. has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed in the city of Belton, Missouri, this 31st day of May in the year of Lord 2022.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for taking time to honor Mark. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
We hope to see you all on June 10th for our regional assembly. Appreciate your elected officials and staff, all the work that you all do to support Mark and the region. The work that you all do is the work that we all do together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should let you have the mic.
Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor, can we take off item B and C real quick?
Sure. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, motion approving resolution R 2022-61.
A resolution approving a contract for services for the 2022 street preservation concrete project for the city of Belton, Missouri with Phoenix Concrete LLC in the not-to-exceed amount of $2,555,427.71.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
My question's for probably both. Unfortunately, I got to pull them both off to talk to about them, but I'm assuming the concrete that we're getting ready to do is all curbs and gutters. Seems like that's a larger bill than what we did with our last one, is the reason I'm asking about this.
That's correct. This is just strictly the curbs and gutters that we're going to do, and the corners of the sidewalks, the ramps that we're going to do for this project. This is actually, the asphalt is the first year, and then the next year, we're going to do the concrete this year for next year's asphalt. So that way the concrete has a year to set up and be stronger by the time that we go out and mill next to it.
So when we look at our map, this $2 million, is this for the whole 4-year project, or is this just the 1-year project?
1 year. So what we did is we did the first year, we put all the streets that had no curbs in it. And then the next year, it's overloaded with a lot of streets with curbs. So that's why you're seeing a lot more curb and corners in the second year.
Okay, thank you. It seemed like it was a lot bigger than what I remember from our last time we did all that, so.
It is because the first time we went through it, we admittedly did a lot of streets. Majority of the streets were non-curbed.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. C, motion approving resolution R 2022-62.
A resolution approving a contract for services for the fiscal '23 street preservation program for the city of Belton, Missouri with Superior Bowen Asphalt Company LLC in the not-to-exceed amount of $4,884,831.40.
Present.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I guess my question is, when are we starting with this project?
We're going to start it when the contractors are available. We bid these jobs late because we had to wait for after the bond election. So most cities had theirs out. So the asphalt contractor, they're trying to slate us in for September, October to do the paving. I haven't got a date yet for concrete when they can slate us in their schedule.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Ordinances and resolutions. A, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-32.
An ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Contract between the City of Belton, Missouri and Y58 Partners, LLC for implementation of the Y Highway Marketplace Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan as amended.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
and Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. B, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-33.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 6, Section 6-315 and 6-1086 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none?
Well-
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Whoa.
I thought this is the one we asked last time at the first reading to have the staff look at pricing for vendor contracts.
So we went through staff time, a calculation of staff time, supplies, storage, document storage, software costs, credit online charges for all of that stuff, and doing an actual study will take a lot of time. But the costs are reasonable for $70. They may be even a little bit on the low side from the things that I looked at. And so we could absolutely do an in-depth fee study. But I do not believe that the fees are undercharged. I believe that they're set relatively appropriately, and if we did a deep dive, chances are that the fees will be required to be increased.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Maybe, I'm not quite sure now what we're voting on, because at the last meeting, we were discussing lowering it for people that are here for just a single event. Are we voting now just to keep it at $70? And then there was a question about, I guess this is the motion about, or the ordinance about, even if they're here on city or whatever invitation, they still have to get the business license. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting what I don't even know what we're voting on.
I think you have
here.
it correct, Councilman Powell. I mean, basically saying that anybody that does business in the city of Belton has to pay a business license of $70.
Okay, cool.
Keep it simple, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, they did what city manager just said, so, you know,
Okay.
I don't know if anybody wants to change it. I mean, obviously, we can do whatever at least 5 of us want to do, but after they went through their process, you know, I'm good with what it is, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawson,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
and Mayor Larky.
Aye, motion carries. C, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-35.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, amending Chapter 4, Animals, Article 4, Livestock and Poultry, Section 4-197, Keeping Poultry, of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Motion.
Present.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Who is the second, please?
Rob, any discussion? How did your crafting go?
So again, per the city council's request, the motion was amended to allow for 10 hens, and then there was also a declaratory statement added at the end, specifically saying that roosters are not allowed.
So when Rob Powell buys 3 more roosters, he's in trouble, right?
I have no roosters now. Don't say that.
Go ahead.
I had 2 citizens kind of say that never been around chickens, but I said that some of these people maybe not be telling the full truth. They stink and they're nasty. So I don't know that to be a fact because I don't have chickens, but
You're welcome to come meet mine.
okay. They don't peck you or anything when you try to get your eggs?
Mine are nice.
She names them even.
Oh, that's true. I had funerals over there.
They're pets. But no, I mean, that's not my experience. Like any pet, you have to pick up after them.
Any kid too.
Any kid?
No, I don't have any issues. I think this person just tried to say that they're not as nice as you guys are trying to lead us on to be, but he didn't have any issues with it. He just said he used to grow up with chickens, and he said they're not very nice creatures.
Well, that's also a reason to say no roosters aside from the sound. Roosters are more territorial because typically they have to protect the flock. So not having roosters means it's less volatile.
Gotcha.
Well, like any animal, if you provoke it or corner it, it's not going to be nice because it's going to be threatened. But chickens are so cool to me. I haven't never had that issue with mine.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. D, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-36.
An ordinance approving a cost-sharing agreement between the Mid-America Regional Council and the City of Belton, Missouri for the Kansas City Metropolitan Region Imagery Project at a cost of $1,826.65.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or more information that we need? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move for a second reading,
Motion
Mayor.
carries.
Move for a second reading.
We have a motion for a second reading.
Second.
And we have a second for a second reading. Any discussion on the motion for a second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2022-36.
An ordinance approving a cost-sharing agreement between the Mid-America Regional Council and the City of Belton, Missouri for the Kansas City Metropolitan Region Imagery Project at a cost of $1,826.65.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Aye.
Councilmember Goff,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
and Kraft.
Aye.
Motion carries. E, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-37.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $9 million principal amount of general obligation bonds, Series 2022, of the City of Belton, Missouri, and certain other documents and actions by the city.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or information?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is super minor, but in the demographic information, there's a description there of the railroad service that we have here in Belton, which is not accurate. So I don't know if I need to just give it to you. I mean, I don't think we wrote this. I think that the bond person wrote it. But anyway, it probably should be corrected.
Yes, if you'll give me that information, we can update it before the second reading.
Okay, I will. And I did read the whole thing.
So,
Good for you.
I didn't see that, but. All right, anybody else? Any other discussion?
Well, I think I was gonna ask if this is pertinent to get it done quicker, but I think we can't do it quicker now because of the interest rates. I didn't know if we were locked in already or not locked in.
We're not locked in. We're actually going to be selling bonds on the market. So there will be a competitive bond sale. And also there are other steps that have to be taken, including a rating call with Standard & Poor's and other steps to get our bond rating. And so there's no reason for us to go ahead and do a second reading tonight because there are other things that still have to take place, and we will not be delaying it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That it?
That's it.
Any council liaison reports? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll give you the parks update. The farmers market begins this Thursday, June 2nd. They've moved over to the Belton Assembly of God parking lot. And this Saturday, June 4th, is the Hy-Vee Summerfest at Memorial Park. The outdoor water park opened this last weekend. Their hours are 12 to 7 every day. You can buy passes at the park or at High Blue. And summer camp begins tomorrow with approximately 100 kids. So busy time for parks.
Go ahead.
The committee for the 150th birthday party met again. We also had our opening kickoff event at Wallace Park, where we had people line up and configure the numbers 1, 5, and 0. That is out on Facebook, so everyone can see that lovely picture. We had a great turnout. It was wonderful fun. Then we got to announce all of the wonderful things that are happening. It is going to be a 4-day event. There's going to be a carnival. There's going to be music throughout all of it. And the big announcement was we will be having Tate Stevens perform a concert.
Anybody else? All right, mayor's communication. I'll start off with the audit. I know there's been a lot of talk about the audit around town. I just want to make it clear that we, as the city council and the city staff, have reviewed the audit quite some time and lengthy, and that we have responded to the audit in, I don't know what the right word to say, but we have responded to the audit and made to all the auditors' recommendations, and council and the staff have corrected all of their requests. We're working on, maybe all of them aren't done, but we're working on that, and the biggest one was the overhead allocation, and we've hired a company to do a study to see how best that we do that. What we were doing, it wasn't illegal, but it was, what's the right word I want to say? They were concerned about how we came up with our figures, so we've hired a company to do a study so we can make sure that falls in line with their request. So other than that, I think everything else was good. We've made a bunch of changes, and we're moving forward. So that's all I had on that. We got several boards that we still need names from you guys, and I'll be getting with you again on that so we can get those filled and moving on. The only other thing I had is, and I'll let her talk about it more too, but Carolyn and I went to, I don't know what the technical name of it, Recon in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, and we made some good connections, and I think it went well. As far as I'm concerned, that's the first one I've ever been to, and it was kind of overwhelming because there was 30,000 people there, and so it was pretty overwhelming. So, so I think we're going to have some good things come from that. It was so overwhelming that one of the booths was giving away a brand new car, and it was a Tesla, and there was $25,000 cash on the windshield or on the dash, and you had to be present to win. And the first name they draw, I don't know who it was, but the guy was on the other side of the convention center, and he was running, and he was 20 seconds late. So they drew another name, and that guy was standing there and won. So when you have to be present to win, you got to be present to win. But it was pretty amazing. But good things coming out of it. So that's all I have. So.
Oh, wait a minute, Mayor.
What?
You're not going to talk about the Belton band trip?
Well, I guess, yeah. I'm a little tired. So yes, myself and thank you for reminding me. Myself and School Board President Jerry Miller were asked by the superintendent to go up to Washington, D.C. to carry a banner in front of the band that played in the National Memorial Day Parade. We went up on Saturday, and the part of the band played at the Jefferson Memorial on a small thing, and it was pretty cool. They sounded great. And then the whole band walked. I think we walked 1.4 miles in that, and I know there was something on Facebook about how they thought myself and Jerry Miller wouldn't make it, but we did. I drugged Jerry a little bit, but we got him there. But it was good. I think it was a great thing for the kids. There was 106 kids and 44 parents, so I think it was a great thing for everybody. They got to see a lot. They're on their way back now. They left at 2, but they stopped and saw the Arlington National Cemetery this morning, and then they're on their way. So it was a good thing for it. And they were well behaved. I was surprised they were well behaved. And there was a change of plans Sunday night. After they got to eating dinner, they were told that they had to be up at 5 o'clock to go down to do a spot for the local news channel. And they rode a bus down, so I had to get up at 5 too to go down there too. But it was pretty cool. They were all well-dressed, well-mannered at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they played excellent for this local spot for the ABC, I believe it was, in Washington. So it was good. It's all over Facebook, so if you want to look at it, it's good. So that's all I got. You have anything?
I just had 2 things I wanted to mention to you guys. Chief Lyons was notified that we were awarded a Vawa Grant in the amount of a little over $195,000, and that's great news. And additionally, as we are talking about the new street closure event process, what I wanted to let you guys know is there is a street closing for Broken Hatchet's 1-year anniversary celebration coming up, and it's on June 4th. And because that's not coming before you, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware. And it's on Ella that night, so, or that day.
Can you say that grant name again?
VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act.
Okay. I assume that's what the money's gotta be used for then, is that,
Yes. I included in our budget this year was an additional detective position, and so that money will be used to offset the salary and benefits for that position.
cool.
Communication from city council. Go ahead.
Well, I got to go and step in for the mayor when he was out on all these trips for the city. One of the things I got to do was go to Belton Regional. They're getting ready to open up sometime in mid-June. They're waiting for the state of Missouri, whoever polices their
Department of Health.
Department of Health has come in and say that they built 15 new ICU rooms. So we got and went and did a ribbon cutting. So it was, the communication specialist was there, Jordan Leah. She's not here tonight, but it's very interesting, and these things are nice. So talking to some of the fire personnel, Chief Sapp was there. He's the one that told me that we do a lot of transports because we don't have enough ICU beds in our community. So hopefully this will cut down on that. The other thing we got to do, which the mayor was there too, we went to Dutch Brothers today. So had little friends and family, and they're going to open up Friday morning, I think 5 o'clock. So if you want to be the first one, be like those
Not
kids
gonna
and
be
get
me.
up at 5 o'clock. So,
Gonna be me. So,
and we have Summerfest going on next week, which I think, you doing cornhole again? Okay.
how will is it Summerfest this weekend or next week?
It's this weekend.
How is that gonna fare with the Broken Hatchet Street closure?
It's downtown.
Oh, the Summerfest is all out there. Okay, all right. I knew that. So.
That's all I
Anybody
got.
else? You done? Go ahead.
I just had two questions. Have we ever got a bill yet for the audit?
We have not yet.
Okay. And this is, I guess, sort of for Chief Lyons. In the past 7 days, since the Uvalde school tragedy, there's been over 14 mass shootings in the U.S. Hope we all agree that no matter how safe we feel, a mass shooting at a school or gathering in Belton could take place. If it does, who is the law enforcement officer in charge of making tactical decisions during the active shooting? If there are school officers, local police, county deputies, state troopers, etc. on site. Do you have a plan for that, or is that?
Yeah, we follow normal our standard operating protocols in regards to active shooter, and officers run in. They do not stage. We do not wait for a commander to get to the scene. We do not wait for someone to say, stop at the door. In fact, this has been a topic with the school district for the last 6-8 months because we're taking it a step further. No longer will we just talk about it in the classroom. We're actually doing exercises with the school. And we just did a tabletop exercise, less than 30 days ago. And we will be doing an update with some new techniques that are basically police practices. And so this is a daily conversation that we have inside the PD. The thing that I would caution you about is this is just not response to active shooters in schools. It's active shooters anywhere.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none. Items for review and discussion. Item A, Cass County Commission and Olson Acre Sanitary Sewer. We have North Commissioner Ryan Johnson wants to talk about this. We've had some discussion about it, but before it went any farther, I wanted to make sure everybody was on board with what they kind of got worked out between Greg and the county commissioners. So I'm going to let him go ahead and talk, say who you are, and then.
Mayor, thank you. Council members, thank you very much. Ryan Johnson, I'm a county commissioner for District 2, which covers the city of Belton, Raymore, Peculiar, and then we just redistricted. Newly elected in 2020 and assumed office in 2021. For those of you that haven't met yet, you might file this under one of those issues that you don't expect to deal with when you're first elected to public office, and maybe some of you can relate. Some years ago, the county, through a former commission, do you need me to hold this up, or, okay. Some years ago, through a former commission, the county acquired responsibility for what you might call a neighborhood, which is at the corner of 187th Street and South Mullen. You can see the map on the screen above and perhaps have it in front of you. It's a collection of about 30 or so homes. You might even say it's a bit of a blighted area. The sewer system is what the county became responsible for, and actually a separate sewer district was created that the county commissioners actually form that sewer district. And we're responsible for this, and you can see the lagoon. It's an old lagoon-style system, so an old-fashioned potty pond. And unfortunately, over the years, it's fallen into disrepair, and it's actually gone out of compliance with DNR, EPA, and so on and so forth, and is actually leaking on the south end to some adjacent properties. You can imagine the problem and the issue. So the county commission is 100% committed to, one, closing the pond, and over the last few years, even before my tenure on the commission, the county commission has begun to clean up the area, take out brush, cut down trees. You can see that center section of trees in there. There were old, dilapidated and unusable vehicles and all sorts of just trash in there. That's all gone. We've also begun to buy homes, and you're talking purchase of homes for $25,000, and we've then demolished them, just taking them offline. That was the slow strategy. The result of ARPA dollars, though, has facilitated the opportunity for us to take this offline even quicker. And we've employed a sewage engineer to help consult on this. We've talked to DNR extensively and have recently gone out to bid yet again to engage another engineering firm. And what we would like to do, per the sewage engineer, in order to take this offline rapidly, is to connect all of these homes to a pump station and hook them up to a sewer system. It just so happens that that black line that you see across the road, South Mullen, is actually Belton City Sewer. So the easiest solution would be to hook into the Belton City Sewer. Now, we're not here asking you for any money, anything like that. We can use the ARPA dollars that the county has received, as well as we're going to apply for an additional ARPA grant through DNR. So it's ARPA money, but through the state's DNR. We will be applying for that as well, and we're in the process of that right now, to pay for all of this. But what we do need in order to be able to solve this long-standing problem is your help and your partnership and your permission. And we have enjoyed, at least in my tenure here, and I know even before, a good working relationship with the city of Belton, whether it be the creation of the recent crime commission that the chief and the mayor have been supportive of, or crime coalition, I should say, or us buying the old Belton or Welcome Inn, or as we like to say in the county commission, the Houston Inn. I'm joking, if you know Presiding Commissioner Bob Houston. You've been good partners to work with, and we hope that we're good partners to work with you as well. And we want to continue that. But this is a problem that like I said, is long-standing. It's an environmental issue. It's an issue, quite frankly, it's a lawsuit for our common taxpayers waiting to happen from the EPA and the DNR unless we do something. It's been the responsibility of several previous commissions over the years, and many have just tried to ignore this problem, and I don't blame them at all, but we can't ignore it any longer, and it has to be dealt with, and the system has to come offline. And again, the cheapest, easiest, most efficient solution possible is simply to hook all these homes onto the Belton City Sewer. We've been in talks with Public Works, we've talked to the mayor, but we wanted to bring it before you where it really belongs to ask for your help, and again, to ask for your partnership and your permission. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if there's questions I can't answer tonight, I'd be happy to get you that data and follow up.
So, I happened to be on council 20 years ago when they first came to us and saying that DNR said this thing wasn't suitable. So, I mean, here we are 20 years later saying the same thing. How are they going to fund this going forward, or is the county always going to be paying it for them? I mean, they got to be paying into our sewer system somehow, right?
So, believe it or not, the the customers, if you will, the residents, were not actually paying anything until the county, within the last year and a half, instituted a sewage bill. Now they are, paying so that they at least have some skin in the game. But, as noted, the current situation is where they flush their toilet and it goes down into that lagoon.
Correct.
And that's just an inefficient, out of
So
compliance system.
you're saying there's gonna be like one hookup there, with a lift station and then just one hookup to our sewer main?
That plan isn't finalized yet, just to be clear. But what we want to do is permanently close the lagoon. So we're actually in the process of pumping it right now and partnering with another group to dispose of it responsibly. So that lagoon will eventually go away completely, if all goes well. And then we'll create at least one pump station. All those houses would be tied into that system, and then eventually we'd have to bore underneath South Mullen Road to be able to tie into your system. I'm not an engineer by trade, and of course this would be done, in partnership with our engineers as well as your public works, again, with your permission.
I don't have a problem with it. My issue was 20 years ago, we were gonna run sewer lines down the streets for all these residents, but they didn't have the financing to get it from their house to the street.
Right.
So that ended it. They wanted us to pay for that. So, I mean, I think the avenue you're looking at is probably the best avenue.
We're gonna pay for
Having
that.
one hookup, because they're already going there anyhow.
Right.
So, I
My,
think,
my guess is with these old lines, and I've not seen them personally, but these old lines are probably quite outdated. So my guess is when we create that pump station, we're eventually gonna have, or in process, or with that, we're gonna have to put new lines, hook up the houses to the pump station, and then run the line to your sewer line, and then on down to your treatment station. So in effect, I think they would probably become the city of Belton's ratepayers.
now, we've talked about that in the last year about regionalization of our sewer system. So, I mean, it's something we are talking about and have talked about. So adding them on is not something that I don't have an issue with because it needed to be done 20 years ago. So,
I think the issue most likely, and to be quite frank, was always money.
money, it's always.
And with the ARPA dollars, it gives us the ability to not have to come here hat in hand asking you for money. We can say we're willing and able to pay for it ourselves. Again, we just need your partnership, your help, and your permission in order to be able to hook them onto the system.
I actually like the one hookup plan better, so sounds good to me.
Anybody else?
Mayor, is this in Belton city limits?
No, it's not.
It
It's in
is,
the county.
Hit any of our city? Because we talked about trying to get them annexed. They wanted to annex in 20 years ago. But then it says, well, you need to run lines to it. We're like, well, we ain't gonna, not even taxpayers. I mean,
right, yeah.
Just to clarify, you said that's 35 residences?
Roughly, I can get you an exact count. We've recently purchased another home, and within the last year, we had purchased another that we've completely demolished and taken offline. So it's in the 30 to 35 range, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Greg, can I get your thoughts on capacity and what this would look like adding to our sewer?
For 35 homes, this won't be a problem for capacity at all.
Okay.
The only problems we had was when they wanted to pump the pond down and deliver it to us in one big lump, and we weren't able to handle that capacity at that point.
Great.
And part of the issue, the reason that we wanted to pump it and get rid of it in terms of the current contents, is like I said, it's actively leaking out that south side and onto a poor farmer's property, and he has been the most patient, gracious soul you can imagine. And we're trying to fix this, not just for him, but for everyone, really. If we can pump that, we hope to do it prior to these huge rains that we're now experiencing. But they were supposed to be on site today, pumping it, and then they'll responsibly dispose of it. That doesn't really begin the process of really closing it. That was just a short-term solution to help try to prevent some of that leakage out that south bank. Going forward, though, we'll continue to pump, and eventually it'll be filled in and go away, again, if we're able to hook into a sewer system.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have any other questions? You got any more to say? Or you?
Now, this is what basically started our regionalization plan was when Missouri DNR contacted us about this site, that it is non-compliant and it does have waste going onto the ground. And so getting this fixed is very important.
Everybody okay with this?
Part of this will require an agreement with their water supplier, because how we will bill them is by getting information from whoever is supplying them water, and they'll send us that information so that we can do the proper sewer billing. And so that will be just an additional step, but not a problem at all.
I guess, never asked the question, I'm assuming they're good with all this?
I'm sorry?
Olson Acres, they're good with hooking on, and they're gonna have so much, I mean, I don't know what you're charging them now, Commissioner Johnson, but I'm assuming our charge is gonna be a little bit higher. I've seen our sewer bills before, so I'm assuming, are they good about paying extra to make sure they have good sewer system out there?
Well, the predicament that they're in right now is they can't even sell their homes.
Okay,
Because it's not an active, sewer system. So, and like I said, we're in the process of, buying, homes and taking them offline and demolishing them as a long-term strategy. This opportunity through ARPA funding has given us the opportunity to do this a little bit different way. Rather than just take the entire neighborhood offline, one house at a time, we can actually address this, hopefully hook onto a sewer system, pay for it through ARPA dollars, and they can continue to live there and be able to sell in their homes and, so on and so forth. So we have not, though in full disclosure, polled each individual household. It's a problem that has to be dealt with per DNR, and we just can't afford to kick the can down the road any longer. So we're committed to dealing with it one way or the other. Like I said, the most cost-effective and efficient solution is your all's help. So, and if you get home thinking about this, please know that me and Commissioner Houston would be delighted to come to your homes, offices, meet over coffee, and meet with each council member individually to discuss this. And I think your next meeting is June 14th, is that correct?
Yeah. June
So
14th.
in the next couple of weeks, maybe we can come around and meet with you one-on-one and discuss this.
I will add to what Commissioner Johnson said. One of these houses up on Mullen sold earlier this year, but they could never get it closed because of the sewer situation. In the height of the market, these homeowners couldn't sell their house because of the sewer situation.
Would this ever be a thing where we'd have to supply them water down the road also?
I don't know the answer to that question, quite frankly. We should get that answer for you prior to June 14th.
Mm-hmm.
And we're happy to
He's
explore
probably
that
got the answer
question.
right here, right now.
We cannot supply water to them. It's outside of our service area.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think they're public water supply too, or something like that out there.
That is correct.
So, I mean, you gotta have de-annexations and all that other stuff for us, or we have to annex them into our city before we could give them water even.
It doesn't matter where the city limit is. Our boundary for our water district is just a few hundred feet south of Cambridge.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter how far south you go. Beyond that, we cannot supply water.
Go ahead.
You said this is all covered by ARPA. Is there any burden financially to the county?
So we can afford to do this through the ARPA dollars that the county has received. The county received $20.52 million in ARPA funding as a result of COVID. I'm sure the city of Belton received their share as well. We're not asking for any of it. We'd be, again, happy to cover this through the ARPA dollars that the county has received. It's a good use for one-time money, we feel like. The other thing, too, is that the state of Missouri, because of their ARPA funding that they received, has made available through DNR additional grants for wastewater projects like the one you see before you. So we are in the process of applying for that grant right now as well. So one way or the other, we can cover this through ARPA money, either through the state's nugget of ARPA dollars or through the counties.
So that answered my question. I just wondered if the county would be burdened any at all.
What I do worry about is the long term, if we don't fix this and the county gets sued by EPA, then it could be a definite burden to the county taxpayer.
Anybody else got any
Here's
questions?
what's your timetable? I mean, you trying to do this summer, or?
If I could have done it last year, I would have.
Well, we
Our-
could've-
Our
we-
timeline is ASAP, so really we're constrained by, the engineers, and the providers that will, if you agree and give us permission, we'll obviously have to execute an MOU between, the city of Belton and the county of Cass. We'll obviously have to, figure out some of the details, obviously through Public Works and all of those things, but, in terms of the policymakers' timeline, it's as soon as possible.
I mean, it should have been done 20 years ago, absolutely, but yeah, I mean, I think, looking at these 8 people sitting up here, I don't think there's anybody have issues. That's why I didn't know if this is something you're gonna get engineering on immediately, or if this is something that's gonna be taking 2 years to fix.
Well, if the city of Belton, again, gives us permission and decides to partner with us and help us here, then we can move forward expeditiously. If for whatever reason you decline, then we will have to go back to the drawing board, and it'll take us a little bit longer to figure out what the next best solution is.
I know you and Bob talked about a deadline for that grant that you're applying through DNR, so there's a time
It's in July, yeah.
for that other grant.
I mean, unless Greg sits here and tells me us why we shouldn't be doing it, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. I mean, like I said, I talked about this in 2001. I mean, same thing, DNR, and the potty pond is bad and needs to be replaced, and, I mean, I just soon move forward with it unless people are telling me not to do it. But I'm saying, yeah.
Absolutely do it.
Go ahead.
This question is for staff. Do we have any other areas surrounding Belton that we would potentially service like this or currently are?
Wheatland Estates is on our sewer
Okay.
There's a couple other parks like this that could be connected at some point, but they're gonna have to basically do the same sort of process.
But currently, we don't have any customers set up like this outside of city limits where we just
Wheatland
do sewer?
Estates.
We do.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Steph.
Is this, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Is this limited to just this 30 to 35 homes, or could there be more homes later on added to this that could cause a problem?
This is all that the county
Just
commission
this.
has responsibility for. We don't want to be in the sewer business, and, we are, unfortunately, not through any fault of Commissioner Houston's or Kisner's or my own, but it's something that, we have inherited, and we want to deal with it with finality. So we appreciate you.
You need a motion, or how do you want to handle
Well,
it, Mayor?
I don't believe there needs to be a motion. I think there's pretty clear consensus among the 8 city council people, and staff will continue to work with the county to bring forward the necessary documents for approval by the city council.
There you go. Everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Item B, street closures, event process, and parades.
Good evening, Council. On April 12th, this item was brought to the work session. After discussion with staff and review of the City Council comments, we're bringing it back to you as a draft to consider. This proposed code section and permit has a limited scope of those requiring a temporary street closure for a special event.
Do you have any?
What page was that on?
278.
Andrea, do you want to outline some of the?
Certainly. I did look at 2 of our larger metropolitan cities. They had quite extensive workup for temporary street closure for events. So I used a lot of their language and a lot of their process and their definitions, things, It would require a temporary street closure permit for a special event as defined on the first page. There are a couple of exceptions and a couple of things that are already outlined in the UDC, so those would also be exceptions. They don't need to follow this process. The traffic control would be the responsibility of the applicant. and it would be with approval of the police chief and the public works director when they submit their plan for traffic control. The application process is just about the same as what we're currently doing. The application was also updated slightly, but it's basically the same as what we're currently doing. Security would be the responsibility of the applicant. They can pay for the off-duty police officer if they desire, or do something on their own. And parades are a subsection, but it's pretty much the same thing. There will be some established routes for parades and established routes for athletic events like 5Ks. That helps the police department and the public works department to know exactly how to close the streets. They'll have a protocol for it and a procedure, and it will just be pick which route you want. That's the procedure that we're doing, which simplifies it for both departments. And something that the police department had asked for. And then the last 2-3 pages are the application.
Go ahead.
I had 3 pretty minor things. First of all, you define who can get a permit, but what about a nonprofit group or somebody who's, like a sorority or something? You talk about residents, you talk about companies, you talk about athletic groups, but I don't, maybe it just needs to be expanded, or maybe it doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's only in the definitions, I think, or in the first part where you have a list of the type of groups that can apply.
Most likely, even if there's a nonprofit who's applying, they're still going to be doing it as one of these already defined activities. So if they decide, a nonprofit decides they want to do a 5K, that would still be an athletic event. Or they decide they want to do a block party, it would still be a block party.
Okay. I thought there was some place though where you said a corporation, a resident.
There is a definition on page 1 of a corporate or commercial event. That would be something where one of our businesses decides that they want to close the street for a business event.
Okay, so let's say the Historical Society next door wanted to have a block party. It says a residential event, but that it doesn't make a difference which of these categories that falls under it. It would still go through the same process, right? Even though doesn't fall under one of your categories here.
If the Historical Society as a nonprofit wanted to do an event, and if they chose a block party, then one of their members would likely be having the party at their house, because it'd have to be a residential party to be a block party.
Okay.
And therefore it would be a block party.
Okay, so you're saying that the Historical Society or the Chamber of Commerce or any of the nonprofits here, or maybe they're not nonprofit, I don't know. But anyway, some of these groups, they couldn't have a block party on Main Street. Is that what you're saying?
Not a block party, because a block party is residential. They could close the street, though, for their own corporate event. And then they would fall under the corporate event.
Okay, even though they're not a corporation, but they would,
Corporate or commercial,
Yeah.
see that.
Or additionally, it would fall under an entertainment event as well, because there would
Okay.
be entertainment or amusement provided as well.
Okay.
The way that the current draft is set up is it looks more at the type of event, less at the type of entity applying for the permit.
Okay, so that's what I was hoping would happen, okay. And incidentally, I forgot to say, thank you very much for doing all this. I know you had to coordinate with a lot of people, but I know most of the work fell on you, so thanks. Second thing, though, it does say someplace where the closing of the Main Street requires city council approval. Does that even include the residential part of Main Street?
I believe,
Like
let me find where
700,
it
800,
says
and 900
that.
blocks? I think that's,
Where does it say it? My computer died right before this council meeting, so I had it loaded where I could have searched it, but now I don't.
well, yeah,
Oh, okay, here we go. Page 3 of the document.
uh-huh.
Applications submitted, yes. Applications for city sponsorship or requests to close Main Street or other non-residential streets require city council approval.
Okay, so request to close Main Street or other non-residential, but at least half of Main Street is residential. So, I mean, again, if Chris or myself wanted to have a block party in front of our house, would we have to get city council approval or would it be a residential?
There would be city council approval. The way that it's currently drafted, any closure of Main Street would need city council approval, even the residential portions.
Okay. And finally, in the one that was interim, I guess, you had the same thing where 2/3 of the affected people had to be, but I think there the word was neighbors. And so now it just, well, in quotes now, just includes people who are directly affected. So again, although we do have a paragraph called parking saying that it can't affect nearby properties, I'm not, the same thing. If we have a block party in the 500 area of Main Street and we get city council, we go through the whole city council thing, it does have an effect on the rest of Main Street. Is that just kind of glossed over, or would you have to get approval from other parts of Main Street?
I will say that this was nearly directly taken from one of those other municipalities in the metro.
Okay.
So this is the way they handled theirs. I used a lot of their same language. It does say residents and business owners whose entrance will be impacted by the event or the street closure, and those at the street intersections of where the event or street closure will take place must be notified. So because Main Street is a one-way street, it would affect many businesses.
Other than the block that's being closed. I mean, that's the way that's,
Unless the cross streets are open, and then you'd still have access to the other half of Main Street.
yeah.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the parking. I mean,
Yeah, there was something in here about the parking part.
Yeah,
Had it can't affect
Yeah, and
the purpose of the street.
it's on the bottom of page 5, and I'd note for the council that it's a shortage of parking. There are other opportunities for parking to occur specifically on Main Street included in the city-owned parking lots. And I think, and on Loop Road, and I believe that is what it's directing
Okay.
to. It's not saying that it can't affect the parking in any way, shape, or form, but instead there can't be, an event couldn't cause it so that nobody could access that event or those businesses. So, for example, I think previously during the Main Street closure for Christmas, the city-owned parking lots were opened for use by the public. Since those were opened, there would not be a shortage of parking because people were allowed to park there, thus replacing those remaining spots along Main Street that were
okay.
lost.
Okay, so,
I think the shortage is the interpretive word there to kind of key in on.
okay. Okay, no, that's cool. That's good. Thanks.
I just, a couple of things. I know Chief Lyons wanted to make sure that the application deadline was 60 days enough for a parade to make sure you have everything down, because I know at one time you said there wasn't enough time sometimes for you guys to put a plan in place for a parade, so I just want to make sure that 60 days is satisfaction.
Right offhand, I can't remember where we ended on that, but yes, we wanted at least 30 days, if not 60.
It's 60, so my other question is, there's got to be, I know Cherry Street can't be blocked off. Not Cherry Street. Main Street between the blocks of Chestnut and Cherry Street cannot be blocked off because of the fire department. There has to be other streets that we will never shut down too. Is that correct? North Scott, 163rd, I mean, there's,
It's gonna be your major streets, but when they do apply, the application goes to the police department, fire department, and public works, and any of those departments, planning department, can say no, or we need to relook at this map, or that's not gonna work for the situation.
Chief
Councilmember,
Lynch.
Councilmember Clark, if you look at the first sentence on page 6 under revocation or denial, the temporary street closure special event permit may be revoked at the discretion of the chief of police or his designee when the health or safety of the public is threatened by an emergency, disaster, or unforeseen circumstances. There's also additional revocation procedures. I believe it would most likely be the position of the chief of police that we should not close our primary thoroughfares in the city that are utilized by public safety for transportation and for just general policing.
Well, I guess my question is, I just didn't know if we had a specific list of streets that'll, no matter if they want to do something there or not, that we automatically just tell them no.
And I can't speak to that, but I would just say that at this point, that would probably be developed via trial, right? If somebody came in to try and close North Scott for, the two lights there, right in downtown, I'm guessing we'd probably deny it, just knowing that we couldn't access a significant portion of the city.
Okay. Chief, you want to add to that, I think?
There's no established list that I've ever seen. We review each one, and, if accommodations can be made for us to be able to do what we can do, what we need to do, then that's how it happens. We've even had Chestnut closed before, but we just have to plan and coordinate. I couldn't have both Chestnut and Cherry because we have to have access to get to the other side, but each one's looked at individually, and then requires the approval of all of the department heads responsible for anything within it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to go back to the notification part regarding Main Street. So say we close this block out here. Would approval need to come from businesses and neighbors on this block and then only the other ones on the other side of the intersection, so Broken Hatchet and Wild Poppy?
It's probably something we would have to look at on a case by case, especially once we see the map that they present to us.
Okay, I'm just thinking about the soccer game with Calvary, which was, I think, the block in front of Terra's, if I'm not mistaken. And then some businesses, on the other side of that were impacted, and that's a Ward 3 issue. I don't have a business on Main Street. I typically am not asking to close streets for anything, but I think it's worth noting that all of the commercial businesses could be affected because of the one-way, and if 2/3 approval is needed, that might extend to all of them on Main Street. Have we considered that?
I think it's certainly possible.
Okay.
I know that when we get the application and it includes the map, all of those departments we just talked about, they do all look at it, and it's made a determination on a case by case.
Well, I think the event you're bringing up is the reason we're talking about it. Just because why are they shutting down Main Street? They don't have anything to do with Main Street. So, but I think that's why we're talking about this, making sure it comes before us before it happens again.
Yeah, and, coming before us is nice, but I would think that the approval from neighboring businesses, if we're closing down a section of Main Street, should include all the businesses on Main Street. It's a big ask, but.
Yeah, but
I get what you're saying, because having been involved with Fall Fest, whatever they call it today, we used to have some people on Main Street that never wanted Main Street closed. So you always had to make sure you took those people into consideration when I was involved in that event. But yeah, we try to bring stuff to Main Street that's going to bring people to Main Street too, and that's the whole goal, is make Main Street the focal point of that event.
There's a lot of ways around it to be a good neighbor, right?
Right.
Sundays is typically an okay time to close down Main Street. You won't be impacting too many businesses, so just like I said, speaking up for some of the businesses downstream that would have an issue.
Well, but that's another point too, which is kind of weird in that a lot of the businesses aren't open on Saturday or Sunday. Dave's 24/7, so he's there all the time, but
24/7 right here, right?
there you go. But does an insurance company really care? They're always going to vote, sure, close it down on Saturday night. But if business is having a dance program or we're having a theater thing or whatever, we do care. And, I mean, I think it'll all work out, but I just think there's a lot of people that just check the box because they know they're not going to be here anyway until Monday morning. The other thing I want to ask is, can we shut down North and Cedar because they're state highways?
There's an approval process that goes to the Missouri Department of Revenue. I'm sorry, Transportation.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. It probably goes to revenue too.
Yeah, and so their process is lengthy, and that's one of the reasons that 60 days was pertinent to us at the police department, because those applications would involve us and Public Works, and that approval process being sent to the state. I was involved in several of those involving Lee Summit and then up in Nebraska, but it takes a while.
There was an application that came in a few years back, and they wanted to close Colburn, and the police chief and public works directors at the time said no. It was a major street, and it didn't work to have one of the major streets closed, to have a party in the street.
So any event on Main Street is required to have security that you have to pay for?
No.
It's not requiring security, but it is requiring the correct road closure signs.
Yes.
Okay. And, or go ahead.
I was just going to answer the question in regards to security. Several of the cities that I've been a part of is when you get into alcohol events or you get into after hours, evening hours, they have required security. You're always at a push point at what population are you expecting for the event versus, not providing it at all. In the city of Lee Summit, these issues that you're talking about tonight became because of a shooting that was involved with something that happened at a commercial business in a very public area. And then those, ended up looking at the way we handled special events. So there's always a push and a play in regards to whether or not security should be provided or not provided. So it's a valid question, and it really depends on the event, type of event too.
And my other question was on the road closures. Do you have to purchase them from a certain company? Could Downtown Belton Main Street organization purchase these and use them for all the streets or all the businesses on Main Street that choose to close the street?
I'm going to defer to Greg.
You could do it any way you want. I mean, there's companies that do it and operate and maintain it up. There's also, you can buy them and store them yourself if you want to. If downtown wants to buy them to keep installing them, they can do that.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right. Item C, Fire Department Medical Director Contract Renewal.
City of Missouri requires us to have a medical director in order to operate our ambulance and allow our EMTs and paramedics to practice. So this is just a renewal of one that we've had. We've been using Dr. Stamper now for about 5 or 6 years, I believe. There are no changes in the contract. It remains exactly the same. No pay increases, just a change in the date. So that'll be coming for you next meeting.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Does he actually do anything for you guys, or is he just does he come out and?
He does. He participates in our quality assurance, and so they do monthly, sometimes every other month. He comes out, they review calls. He has to approve each and every one of our protocols or any changes, and then he fields also complaints from around the metro area. If there's complaints coming from hospital, he fields those and then gets back with our EMS chief to work on those. So he's pretty active, much more active than some that we've had in the past.
Okay. I just never voted on this before, so.
Any other questions? Item D, Express Oil Easement Vacation and Plat Approval.
Yep, staff is finishing up the review of Express Oil and Tire Change, which is proposed to be located at the southwest corner of 58 and Apple Valley Parkway. There was a final development plan previously approved by Planning Commission back in February, and they are currently, we have a vacation request for blanket utility easement and drainage easement on the property, as well as a partial sewer easement vacation that will go forward along with the final plat to the next Planning Commission meeting next Monday, June 6th, and will be before the City Council on June 14th. And those items will need to be approved and recorded at the county before we can issue building permits for the development.
Any questions? Seeing none, all right. D, express, oh, we already did that. North Scott Design Standards comparison to citywide.
Okay, since there have been several discussions, is this on? It's on. Since there have been several discussions in recent meetings about the North Scott corridor overlay, and there have been some concerns about the overlay district standards and how they compare to the rest of the city, it seems like an ideal time to have a presentation to compare those standards with the city's code. We've reviewed all the items covered under the overlay district standards and have provided bullet points on each with a comparison summary for each topic. Since there are 20 slides, I'll focus on the summary of each topic to make the presentation as concise as possible. So first, I'll start off with the intent of these standards taken directly from the North Scott overlay, which was adopted in 2017, which states that these standards are to provide a uniform and enhanced set of design standards that are above and beyond the base standards found within the city's current zoning districts. In comparing the two, we have found that there are some standards that are enhanced, whereas most standards are just more prescriptive or specific, not necessarily any more burdensome than the city's code. So the North Scott corridor covers all the following items found under the 4 headings, which include site design standards, building design standards, permitted uses, and legal nonconformities. So here's a general description which summarizes the goal of the standards, including providing sites that are well landscaped, have adequate and creative stormwater solutions, building materials and designs that convey permanence, uniform lighting and signage, and pedestrian-friendly sites. So getting into the subheadings and the more specific site design standards, first, these are the bulk regulations which relate to lot sizes, setbacks, building coverage, and height. So the first column at the top is what is in the North Scott corridor overlay, and the second column is what is allowed citywide. And then at the bottom section, which is what I'll focus on, is the summary that provides the comparison. In comparing these standards, the North Scott corridor allows more flexibility in lot sizes and most setbacks, with only rear setbacks being more restrictive when the property is adjacent to a less intensive zoning district. There are no differences in allowable building heights or open space landscaped area requirements, except for residential, where less open space is required for North Scott. For parking and circulation, North Scott provides more flexibility for shared parking, but the same design and material standards apply citywide. North Scott requires cross-access and encourages shared driveways. These same access standards generally apply everywhere in the city, even if not explicitly stated in the code. For landscaping and buffering, although North Scott doesn't require more open space or landscaped areas, it is more specific about how much rock can be used as ground cover. Vegetation and mulches are the preferred ground cover for North Scott. And then sites over 10 acres follow a landscaping point system that allows more creativity and flexibility in exchange for higher quality materials and site amenities. For stormwater management, North Scott requires the same stormwater management standards and solutions that apply citywide. Regional and shared detention facilities are encouraged along with enhancements to those facilities. This same standard would likely be encouraged for large-scale developments anywhere in the city. For exterior lighting, all the same lighting standards apply. However, North Scott does limit lighting to downcast lighting with less than a 90-degree cutoff, which is designed to reduce lighting spillover and glare to adjacent properties. And then for outdoor storage, except for smaller vehicles and equipment, all outdoor storage is prohibited. And even those that do have smaller vehicles and equipment must be fully screened from view typically in the rear yard of the property. Elsewhere in the city, storage may be allowed, but must be screened with a 6-foot privacy fence. So that is one of the areas where it is more restrictive than the city as a whole. North Scott does require enhanced fence designs within yards adjacent to public streets and terrace retaining walls when over 6 feet in height. The locations of chain link, woven wire, and similar fences are limited to non-visible locations. This limits visible fences to generally wood with masonry columns and decorative metal picket-style fences, which are shown in the images on the screen. For enhanced trash enclosure design, which is required, which limits materials to brick, block, or stone, whereas elsewhere in the city, wood and vinyl have been used to meet that requirement. North Scott is less restrictive about equipment screening if the equipment is not visible from the street, but is visible from adjacent commercial or industrial property. Elsewhere in the city, that equipment would need to be screened regardless of what the adjacent use or zoning was. North Scott has more specific and limited signage options, which limits new signage to individual letters mounted on walls or monuments, which is the type of signage that's shown in the images on the screen. In keeping with the rest of the city, no new pole signs are allowed. Moving on to building design. The intent of these standards is to preserve and enhance building and property values with long-lasting materials that are resistant to deterioration, as well as promote an image of permanence, quality, authenticity, and consistency. For building placement and site design, North Scott has more specific design standards for vehicle-oriented land uses. That includes fuel pump canopy design, drive-through facilities design standards, and added screening for delivery, service, and loading docks. Some of these standards, particularly the prohibition on dual-lane drive-throughs, may be burdensome for certain land uses and tenants. This in particular is one of the topics where North Scott has standards that are above and beyond the city's requirements. For building architecture, North Scott has more specific design standards. However, the standards aren't generally anything that would go above and beyond what the city would already require elsewhere. More specific standards include addressing pedestrian-level design features related to entrances and windows. For building materials, North Scott has a more specific material standards, but does include a menu of options to choose from to mix and match to meet these requirements. This can encourage more diversity in building materials to avoid monotony. North Scott does not allow metal siding or paneling. However, this is also prohibited in commercial zoning districts throughout the city and only allowed on the side and rear facades in industrial zoned areas. So the next topic is permitted land uses. The table of uses identifies those uses that are compatible with the goals and intent of the North Scott Corridor Plan, which was adopted in 2014. So from permitted land uses, there are several land uses that wouldn't typically be allowed in business park zoning elsewhere in the city, but are permitted in flex industrial zoning in North Scott. That includes art galleries, restaurants, taverns, hotels, and all scales of retail. The North Scott Corridor does prohibit several land uses that may be permitted elsewhere in the city in some commercial and business park zoning districts, either by right, with conditions, or as a special use. And the list is on the screen there. That it does include adult businesses, non-bank financial services, body art services, outdoor storage, cremation services, bed and breakfast, mini warehouse or storage facilities, smoking or hookah lounges, car washes, motor vehicle repair, and vehicle and equipment sales and rental, and vehicle, RV, and boat storage or towing services. Lastly, for the legal nonconforming properties, it is the intent that over time nonconformities will be brought into compliance with these guidelines. All building or site expansions or building facade modifications and site modifications shall comply. The only items not required to comply include general maintenance, such as painting, window replacements, repaving or existing paving, and replacement of existing landscaping. All other requirements include the installation of new signage, fencing, screening is required to comply with these standards. These are the same requirements for nonconformities elsewhere in the city. So that wraps up my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or if there's any comments or concerns on any of the items that we need to revisit or explore further in the future.
The only thing that caught my attention, Matt, was there was like no drive-throughs, like no drive-through restaurants are allowed on North Scott.
Drive-through restaurants are allowed. Go back to that. There just are some specific standards. Yeah, so there are enhanced drive-through design standards required. It doesn't prohibit drive-throughs, but there is a prohibition on double drive-throughs. So, for example, Dutch Brothers has a double drive-through. So that type of drive-through situation wouldn't be allowed in the North Scott corridor per the approved plan. It does allow drive-throughs,
So
but they
did we
have to be
change
single
and
lane.
allow Dutch Brothers to do that? Because I heard another restaurant wanted that and wasn't allowed to do that. So just trying to figure out, and it wasn't on North Scott, it was on 58 Highway also. So I know you weren't here, so I'm just trying to figure out.
The planning commission approved that.
They did approve that?
Yeah, and they have a raised sidewalk for
Yeah,
pedestrians.
I used that today, actually.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Worked pretty good,
You
too.
didn't get hit, huh?
Didn't get hit?
Yeah,
No, I'm
there-
just trying to figure out, so the planning and zoning changed some of that stuff.
Yeah, currently there is no restriction elsewhere in the city on double lane drive-throughs.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you had a big list of prohibitions there in North Scott, if there's a used car or motor vehicle repair, let's say, motor vehicle repair on North Scott, and somebody comes in and buys that business and keeps it as a motor vehicle repair, does that trigger a change, or is it only if they make it from motor vehicle repair to car wash, and then it's a trigger that they can't do it?
Yeah, even if property ownership changes, as long as the use remains active, they are allowed to continue that use regardless of ownership. If the land use ceases to exist for, it's either 6 months or 12 months, then any future use has to meet one of the permitted uses in the overlay.
Okay.
But they couldn't take, as your example, they couldn't take a motor vehicle repair and then turn it into a car wash because the car wash isn't allowed.
Okay. And again, I've been asking about fences. It said something about wood fences with concrete. Is that solely the only way you can put up a wood fence in North Scott overlay with the concrete pillars?
That is the only type of fence that's allowed within any yard that's adjacent to a public street. So it has to be, it's that second bullet point there under North Scott corridor overlay. So it has to be decorative metal or capped and trimmed wood with masonry columns. So either of those two images would meet that requirement.
Okay, so it is okay if it's against the backyards of residents.
Yes.
I mean, it's okay to do away with the concrete.
So if you could have something a little bit less enhanced in the side or rear yard of the property. The only prohibition is there on the first bullet point, which is the chain link, woven wire, or similar fences can't be visible.
Okay. And I'm sorry, but this has nothing to do with your presentation, and I appreciate your presentation. It's really good. But how come the Southview Commerce Center's in the North Scott overlay district when it's not on North Scott? Do you know? Do you remember when that decision was made, or Dave, or anybody else?
I don't know.
Carolyn?
Hi. So yes, I was around for that. So the reason staff looks a lot at aerial views of the city, and this is definitely one of those. And what we noticed was, or one of the things that we wanted to just, sorry, I'm not getting my thought across here
That's okay.
correctly, but it was an abandoned golf course, and the flex industrial, or the industrial that's going on at the Commerce Center, the former Richards Gebauer base. And so it wasn't just city staff, but it was also the community that said, let's look at this, explore for future use as flex industrial.
Okay. So it just wasn't done in the middle of the night. There was a lot of thought that went into it.
No, and when you're trying, at that time, we didn't have the Southview Commerce Center. And
Sure.
so we were trying to attract commerce. So you kind of want to make yourself look bigger on a map. And that is what we did, and we were successful in attracting commerce that way.
Thank you.
What is the process if he was mentioning, a business sells, for example, the Welcome Inn, obviously it was zoned for motel. It's changing owners and then possibly an office there. It's saying it should be retail though. So will that just be an application and then it goes to planning and zoning? How does that work for someone who wants to use a space for something different than what it's future zoned for?
So in that retail category, I'll bring up the map. That would include, that could include office uses as well. And so if whatever is going there would need require rezoning, it would go through that rezoning process and specifically for the North Scott overlay. So it would go through rezoning, development plan, plating process if it needed to.
Hey, I want to use this as an example, but let's say Whataburger decides to come into Belton and they want to put on North Scott. They use the double drive-throughs. Are we just going to basically say, you can't come? Got to find another spot?
If Whataburger wants to come to North Scott, I think we would look.
Okay.
As,
So there's.
as a council, what that would
we
do.
could.
I mean,
Okay.
everything's adaptable. I mean, obviously we can change whatever we want, but I would, hopefully we would not turn away a prospective business of that caliber.
Gotcha.
To try to restart North Scott. So, at least that's my opinion. I don't know what everybody else's opinion.
I would think that too.
In that situation, how do we decide which businesses are more important than other businesses?
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Matt, could you talk about what the process would look like if that were to occur?
Yeah, so it would either be to amend the overlay to remove that prohibition on double drive-throughs, or if there was a special process that the Planning Commission or Council wanted to utilize to approve a double drive-through. One way to do that is I believe that you can do that through a development plan process, make certain amendments to a plan through that manner. I don't think that it would warrant the variance process, but it could potentially go along with that preliminary development plan and that would go along with the rezoning.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to clarify, as somebody who lived in Houston for 25 years, Whataburger's exactly the same there, anyway, as Burger King and McDonald's and Arby's and everybody else. Everybody goes to the one that's nearest your house. Whataburger is not a big deal. Here it is, but not there.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Item F, acceptance of public infrastructure, Autumn Ridge, third plat, public and Southview Commerce Center, second plat.
This is very similar to ones we have done previously, as different phases of subdivisions are completed and approved by Public Works. We bring them to the City Council for acceptance of public infrastructure. So we'll be bringing Autumn Ridge, third plat, and Southview Commerce Center, second plat, to you for acceptance.
Any questions? Items G, City Hall and Annex renovation.
So I was asked to look at a basic plan of how to reuse City Hall and in the Annex. And the mayor gave me some basic guidelines, and I may have taken some liberties from what he originally gave me. So I apologize for that.
Hey, no, we're good. We'll get it hammered out.
So these are just, I just want to say up front, these are just concepts. This is not like anything that's like written in stone, this is what we're going to do. It's just concepts of what kind of the goals are. The goal is to turn the Annex into City Hall, and then make the current City Hall more into a meeting chamber. And so that's kind of what I looked at, and looked at the people we have and how we do it. So like I said, this is just a drawing I made on a sheet of paper, so it's nothing, there's no CAD or high-techness to this, okay? So it's basically, this is the current City Hall. Main Street's on the top of the paper, and it's at an angle. I put north at the other end, but you gotta know it's at an angle. So basically, I just created a new stage for the council to sit at. Most council sitting situations has the city manager, has the city clerk, and the city attorney that sit up there with them. It's totally your choice how you do it. Like I said, I just put spots out there. In front of it, I put a staff table that the group of us would sit at in front of you. I then put a double line to signify some sort of break, whether it be a half wall, be a short wall, something, as you know, a lot of people in the different situations you've seen lately want to approach and rush you guys, and for safety, I believe they need to have some sort of half wall there. It also contains 2 emergency exits behind you, so there's 2 ways to get out very quickly if necessary. Then I put a speaker stand behind that wall, but I mean, I'm assuming it's a short wall so they can still see over you. And then I put a series of seats that would be there for the public to come. It includes a conference room. There'd be somewhere to put tables and chairs, because in that area you could put tables out if you just had a meeting set up like we have a meeting with tables here. You might want to take them out and just have a regular meeting in there. It has an IT room, and then I put a men's and women's bathroom, and I put them in the back with the doors in the corner. You might be saying, well, Greg, why did you do that? It's mainly because as we redid our buildings, we noticed very quickly you want to make sure there's no angle that someone could accidentally look in the bathroom. Especially if you're sitting up there, the last thing you want to do is look out and be looking in the bathrooms for 3 hours. So I just made sure it was that way. I also put a secured entrance in it, so there's one way for people to come in, that if you wanted to put a metal detector, a police officer with a wand or something, you'd have one secured entrance, people come in and come out to have a more secured environment. It'd still have emergency exits on the sides, but basically have one good solid entrance in for everybody. So it's kind of a basic design. You could move the boxes around however you want it, but it kind of gives you an idea of what needs to be in there. The second one is the Annex. This is kind of overall, didn't put everybody's name in here. I'll show you another picture of it here in a second that shows areas. The main thing in it is that this area that, the building sticks out right here, this would have to be enclosed to expand this building to be able to hold all the people that needs to be in here. It also have to have, and this back door would have to have an airlock in there to prevent when someone comes in the door, when it's 10 degrees outside, the cold air just rushing into people's offices and straight in, and provide a way to get level up to the alley, because right now you have to go down the slope, because the parking for the employees would be in the back parking lot, and this would become visitor parking out here. I took the picture and just color coded it for you so you have an idea. So in the upper left hand corner would be the city manager with their assistant out front. I have it boxed that way so everybody comes in the back door, doesn't walk right past the city manager's office all day long. As when I sat in the other corner, I appreciate that it is a problem. I have city planning highlighted in 2 areas. The center red, it would be for an IT, so all the IT equipment from City Hall would have to be moved over. You have a section for economic development. The city clerk area would be kind of where the storage area is right now, so that area would have to be insulated, would have to be rehab to be able to handle people in it. And then the large area would be finance. One of the changes I made, you'll notice when you come in the front doors, which is on the right, would be a hallway that goes through, so you don't have to walk through the conference room when there's a meeting. Right now, that the conference room is in the hallway. It's rather inconvenient. So it required moving some of the walls for the bathrooms and mainly for the conference room to accommodate the right spacing. I also put a square in there, or a rectangle, for an HR person. And I show the airlock going out of the bottom corner. And then I put on the bottom, the finance area down there in this area would be a drive-through, so someone could actually drive through the parking lot, come up, and be able to pay their bills without actually having to leave their car. Just drive up, pay your bills, and drive on to make it much more convenient for residents. And so this is kind of, like I said, once again, you could rearrange the boxes and put different people where you want it. This just fits everybody inside this area with a break room, bathrooms, conference room, and offices just kind of laid out. Cost, now this is something you're going to ask me. Before we get to cost, one of the things I want to tell you is that these buildings, in order to accomplish this, especially City Hall, would require a complete gut of City Hall. So it would require all new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We've had sewer problems in both buildings, so the floors would have to be removed from the location of the bathrooms all the way to the outside of the building, and new sewer lines placed. Both roofs leak, as we found out in the last 2 weeks. The AC units, there's a couple old ones that need to be replaced. There's additions to the annex to do it, and a lot of the walls in here are not insulated. They're just concrete walls. And the warmer it gets in the summer, you start feeling those offices get warmer. The colder it gets in the winter, you feel you have to use a space heater in those offices just to kind of keep warm. So basically what I did is I have two sets of costs here. One's for City Hall rehabilitation, one's for the annex. For City Hall, I did, basically the way I looked at it is I calculated the square foot of the building. For City Hall, we factored in $175 a square foot. And then based upon that, we came out a percentage more for engineering and architect and contingency. And we came up with $1.425 million to rehabilitate that building. For the annex, we used $225 per square foot. And like I said, you could estimate higher or lower, how you feel you could contract it. It's 10,500 feet. So that put construction at $2.5 million. We took a percentage for the engineering architect that have to be done, portion for contingency. So we came up with $3.65 million to do that building. Now, if we were able to hit a budget of $975,000 and $2.5 million, and you didn't need that contingency, you can see the price goes down by $1 million. If we were able to hire an architect that could do it cheaper, you could do it better. But you will definitely have to have new plumbing, new gas lines, because you're moving all the bathrooms, you're changing things. So it's going to have a lot of work done to it to make it happen. And that kind of gives you a ballpark idea where you're at. If you want to do less or you want to do more, it's totally up to you how you address the problem. It just kind of gives you a general feeling of where we started from. And that's all I was trying to do.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I have a comment. For $6 million, couldn't we go out there and build a new building somewhere?
Yeah.
I've been asked that question a lot. I was asked is to rehabilitate these two buildings. That is a definite possibility.
I would vote for a new building somewhere.
Go ahead.
I have two questions. One would be, what is the motivation in us switching the buildings around? And then the other one is, do we have costs on how much the repairs that we already need anyway are going to cost?
There have been some looking at the repairs that need to be done. We've been just basically band-aiding the two buildings along. And so we haven't done a look at, should we fix the bathroom? Should we do this? Because what is the long-term goal? Do you want to spend a lot of money repairing this building and then moving out? What do you want to do? The other thing I failed to mention in this is that, the buildings will have to be emptied out during the construction. So we'll have to find a temporary location to house employees too.
Did you say that the square footage for the annex is 10,500?
That would be the proposed, with the additions, 10,500.
Okay, and how big is City Hall?
5,600.
Thanks.
And that's basically why the arrangement was put that way.
Anybody else? All right. Motion to enter into executive session, discuss matters pertaining to leasing, purchasing, and sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2. To discuss matters pertaining to hiring, firing, discipline, or promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.3. And to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.12. And discuss matters pertaining to individual identifiable personnel records, performance ratings, or records pertaining to employees or applicants for employment according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.13, and the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Goff,
Aye.
Bryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson, and Powell.
Yes?
Motion carries.